In the heart of a crumbling city, where buildings whispered stories of forgotten dreams and empty streets echoed with the silence of struggle, there lived a man named Ray. Ray wasn't born into hardship, he was thrown into it. His father died in a factory fire when he was just 7, and his mother, unable to cope, disappeared one night without a word. Ray was raised by the streets, by hunger, by cold benches and empty wallets. He never finished school. He never had mentors. But what he did have was rage. Not the kind that burns everything, but the kind that fuels survival. Every night he slept with one eye open. Every day he walked miles looking for work any work. He mopped floors, lifted bricks, washed dishes, and still went to bed hungry. People mocked him. They looked at his torn shoes, sunburned face, cracked hands, and saw a failure. But what they didn't see was what kept him alive. The unshakable belief that this pain, this storm was temporary. Reread newspapers from trash bins. He borrowed books from street libraries. He watched motivational videos outside electronic stores. He filled his soul with knowledge because he had nothing else to fill. When others gave up, Ray wrote goals on walls with chalk. No one clapped. No one cared, but he kept moving. He sold his only jacket to buy a broken laptop. He worked night shifts to afford Wi-Fi at a cafe. He taught himself everything from design to digital marketing. Every rejection email was fuel. Every insult from customers built his armor. When he finally launched his tiny online business, nobody noticed. But Ray kept showing up, rain or shine, broke or bruised. And one day, just one viral post changed everything. In a week, he had orders from 47 states. In a month, he hired the same man who once called him trash. In a year, he turned his online hustle into a global brand. But Ray never forgot the streets. He used his profits to build shelters. He employed ex-prisoners. He mentored dropouts. He didn't just win, he took everyone who doubted him and made them witnesses to his rise. Not with arrogance, but with quiet, unstoppable proof. Ray became a storm no one saw coming. A man who lost everything but his will and still won. He didn't have a mentor or blueprint, just an unshakable desire to change his life. Every evening, after scrubbing floors and stacking chairs, he sat in a dimly lit room with a secondhand phone and a cracked screen, watching free business courses and motivational talks. His meals were simple, sometimes just bread and tea, but his vision was rich. He began selling low-cost items online. Things others ignored: handmade keychains, recycled notebooks, custom t-shirts. With each failure came another lesson. With each insult came thicker skin. Orders were slow. Mistakes were many. But every night he told himself, "I am not done yet." While his peers partied, he worked. While they rested, he rose. He turned every no into fuel. There were days he cried silently on the bathroom floor, questioning his worth. There were mornings he skipped breakfast so he could afford shipping costs. But he kept showing up. Even when he had only one view, one sale, he kept showing up. Slowly, something shifted. One of his handmade journals got featured in a small influencer's video. Orders tripled overnight. Then a story about him was shared in a local newsletter. From janitor to entrepreneur. It wasn't millions, but it was momentum. And momentum gave him hope. He reinvested everything. No fancy clothes, no parties. Just more stock, better packaging, improved service. He reached out to mentors through emails. Some ignored him. But one replied, a woman who once walked a similar path. She didn't offer money. She offered guidance. She told him, "Your story is your superpower." With her advice, he started telling that story not with drama, but with dignity. On social media, he shared the truth. The mop, the shame, the hunger, the heartbreak. And people connected. Because deep down, we all root for the underdog. And he wasn't pretending. He was raw, real, relentless. His small brand grew not because he was perfect, but because he was powerful in his persistence. He hired his first employee, a teenager who reminded him of his younger self. Then another. Soon he was running a full team from a tiny rented space. People began to notice. Interviews followed. TEDx invited him. News anchors called. And the boy who once whispered his dreams into the dark began, shouting them on global stages. He stood there, not with pride, but with purpose. He knew what it felt like to be invisible. He knew what it felt like to be hungry, mocked, forgotten. And now, with every speech, he didn't boast, he bled truth. He built programs for youth who had no mentors. He created scholarships for janitors' kids. He partnered with food banks, remembering the nights his stomach growled in silence. But success didn't make him soft. It made him sharper. Every boardroom he entered, he carried the mop in his mind. Every contract he signed, he remembered the hand-me-down shoes that blistered his feet. His empire wasn't just a company, it was a movement, a rebellion against excuses, a tribute to grit. He was invited to speak at his old school, where once he sat in the back row, unnoticed. Now, as he walked into the same classroom, students rose, phones out, eyes wide. But he wasn't interested in applause. He looked into their eyes and said, "You don't need a last name, a title, or luck. You need fire. And fire doesn't flicker, it fights." That day, dozens of kids went home believing in themselves for the first time. And the janitor turned giant? He kept going. New ventures, global partnerships, a best-selling book, but he never let luxury erase his scars. His mansion had a framed photo of the broom he once held. His office walls had letters from kids who said, "You made me believe." And when asked what he's most proud of, he doesn't mention the millions, the accolades, or the awards. He says, "I never gave up on myself even when the world did." His story became legend, shared in classrooms, printed in textbooks, and echoed in homes where hope had nearly died. Because in the end, this wasn't just about a boy who rose. It was about every person who ever heard, "You can't," and turned it into "Watch me." He proved that you don't need permission to rise, you need pain, persistence, and purpose. He proved that those with nothing to lose often change everything. And to this day, in cities, villages, homes, and hearts, his name isn't just remembered, it's revered. Not as a man who succeeded, but as a soul who refused to break. And every time someone's about to give up, they hear his story and think, if he did it, maybe I can too. That is legacy. That is power. That is the last stand,